Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshops. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. But before we get started, we got to check in with my assistant. There's Molly. What you doing, girl?
Yes. Oh, that's right. You don't have to get up. Oh, okay. Well, you can get up. Ready to go to work?
All right. Well, we got to continue on with this secretary, the Newport Secretary, 18th century. It was built in something like 1770 to 1780. They don't know exactly when. So we're progressing. This is a huge project, so it's going to take another few months. I've got the lower case done, with the exception of the drawers, and everything has been dyed, first coat of the finish. There's the case all done. I got the base. The legs are separate, stored away. But here we got everything is in place and ready to have finish applied, and the drawers made. Of course, we got to do all that. So we can go in three directions. We can work on the drawers in the gallery, the little drawers, or work on the big drawers in the lower part, or we can carve the shells in the desk lid, since we've already got the lid joinery done. I don't have any of the lumber for the sides and the back and the bottom of the drawers, so I have to go get that. So we're going to start on the shells, and so the first thing I did was draw out on the desk lid. I got it drawn out where the shell is, so that has to be carved down into this lid, and then we have the two that go on the outside are going to be applied. So while I laid out the one in the center, I laid this out on this, and I'm going to cut this out and use it as a template, so I can make the other two exactly the same. Now, we have the blocking underneath of it. This doesn't show it, but you've got an area down below it that's going to be either raised for these or lowered in the center. And on this, since this is applied, this is carved separately and then glued to the board, and then the piece under it is. On the original, they had just right about here, they had it straight on that, which makes life a lot easier. But I've seen it done otherwise, where they had the seam between the two pieces be this line right there. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So by using this as a template, I can use modern day tools. I can use a router and route that shape, and then make a complementary pattern that fits tight, and then route that on the top of that blocking. So then I can get the joint right there, and it'll hide the seam between the two separate pieces. And I cut a piece off the same board I cut off of the top. I cut an extra couple feet to do the shells and the blocking, so it'll all be the same board. So hopefully we can match up the grain so it doesn't look obvious as being separate. So that's what the next thing is. Then I'm going to make the templates. All right, here we are doing the shells on the desk lid. I made the template for the raised shells, and I made a complementary one that makes these two like this. So, and I put two dowel pins in. What that allows me to do is, I can't pick this one up. There we go. So I've got the dowels in my blank. So when it's finished and I go to glue it in there, it's not going to move around. It's going to stay with it. And then once that's in place, I've got the blocking underneath of it. I got it fitted, and that locks it into place, so that can't slide there. So what we're after here, this is a basswood one that I carved a few years ago for the block front chest. And here's the blocking seam. That was the bottom of the drawer on that one. But this whole piece is going to be that long. See? So that's why it's a separate piece. So we have to carve just this part, and then we'll glue those two together. So I went and I used this template on the back side like this and routed that pattern, and then took this other one and routed that one. So that makes the modern tools makes that go a lot faster. So I got the two matched. So now what I can do is I've got it traced on there, but I'm going to lock that in place again, and then on the drill press, I'll take the drill bit, get it lined up in that hole, and then drill all these holes all the way across. Then take the bandsaw and cut the outside curve. So that'll get it mostly the shape I need. And then I made these two little holders out of some scrap wood, and it fits in to the same dowel holes. And I got two screw holes, and I can put it in my Moxon vise or the carver's vise and be able to, turn it around and get to the edges. But I think before I do that, before we actually start shaping this, is we need to know where this blocking, where this part of it ends up. And so we've got to shape this part. We've got a curve this way, a curve at the bottom, so there's like a pillow. There'd be like a seam there that's just curved up. So we have to cut that, and that's like about an inch or an inch and a quarter radius. I mean, it's a pretty gentle curve. It matches the drawers. This is all supposed to line up with the drawers. So what I'm going to do is, I don't have a router bit that big, but I'll go ahead and take the biggest round over bit I have, and do those to kind of just get rid of the waste. And then we'll have to take a rasp and then form the rest of that by hand. So we get these done, then we can mate them back up in here and then mark the edge. And then so then when we shape this, we know where we're at. So because we don't want this surface to go below the others. So I think that's about it for now. I got to work on shaping those. Well, I decided that the 45 on that took off more material than a smaller size roundover. So now I'll just mark a line there and in the center, and just start working that around and curving it. But I did screw up. Boy, I hate that. Screwing up is something that happens. You just try to get the time in between screw ups to be longer as you get older. But I had the other piece flipped over when I did it, and of course this is not symmetrical perfectly. It's close. See, it doesn't quite fit. I don't know if you can see there. So you can, you can make a whole other piece, but I don't have another section of this board. I wanted it all be the same board, so the grain kind of still matches. So if I fixed it so that it does fit, then that makes it too short at the bottom. So I took a strip that I had cut off of that board and I glued it on. So I'll let that dry, and then tomorrow I'll recut this shape, reroute that, and then cut it to length, and then do the right side. So there, I'm cutting those holes, so I just bump that right up against there, and then drill the hole. All right, I have drilled the holes. Didn't you notice I did not go all the way through? Wasn't any need to. And then I bandsaw the outer circle, and then just took the chunks out of there. So now what I'm doing is going with the chisel and following my lines right there, just down 1/8 of an inch or so, because we're going to round that front side. We're going to round it up, and it's going to come to this peak. But we don't want to work from the other side. This is the back, right? Because we might get blowout. So for this very edge, you work from the back and get that all shaped this way. And then we'll take the rasp from the front and curve that over. So, alrighty, I fixed my mistake. So you can see the strip that I glued on there, and focus. The seam's pretty well hidden. I think once we round that over, it won't be too bad. But stuff happens. So I've started rounding over. There's my assistant. Started rounding over the edge. So I got the 45, and this is about where the curve should start. And it's only a partial of the radius. So I made a little guide to help me. So just need to get close. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to look consistent. So I just got to do that on those 3 edges on both of those pieces, and then I can trace the edge onto the shell. All right, we got the blocking pretty much done. Just needs the final sanding. And I marked my 45 so I could be sure I got the same curve on both sides. So we got them both done. So I've marked the profile here. So when we're carving the shell, we know we got to stay above that line when we round over that lobe that's right here. And then of course the little center medallion. All right, so onward to the shells. All right, we got the back of the shells. We've got the profile chopped out, so we don't have to go all the way down. We just need to get the 1/8 of an inch or so. Because now we're going to take and round it from. There's actually a method to the madness with these shells. This is more like a John Townsend shell. Even though that the John Goddard is the one attributed to making this secretary. But I like the way Townsend was much more methodical in the way he laid out things in his proportions and in the shells. The shells have exactly the same number of lobes, whether they're applied or carved in, up or down. Whereas on the original, they had 15 lobes on the 15 high lobes on the applied shells, and only 10 on the one that was carved in. And I think it looks better when they have the same number of high lobes. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I'm gonna carve them that way. And one thing that I noticed on the Townsend shells is that if you divide the shell into fifths of the radius, so there's about 1/5 about there. So this is 2/5 circled, 3/5, and a 4/5. And that 4/5 circle is the high point. So we have to round that from this line down to the edge of the thing. It's, I don't know, like a 3 or 3.5 inch diameter thing. So that's what we're going to do next. And then it actually comes down a little bit into our medallion here in the center. So I've got that laid out. I just made a cardboard template right there that I can quickly just stick in there. So so we're going to do each of these steps on both of them rather than go and completely carve one and then go and completely carve the other one. By doing each step on both of them, we are more likely to end up with identical shells, and that's what we want. They need to look the same. So we'll do this with the rasp, and then we'll have to work on this inner part. We don't have to lower it much, but we need to, this has to have a raised bit here. So it just kind of comes down like that. All right, we got them rounded all the way around. And so the next step is to slope it down into the medallion, which I've done one already. It's not going much. And so I just took chisels and worked that down, and then took a scraper and tried to get it reasonably flat. This represents the top of the high lobes. So now we need to cut those. So we'll need to put our marks back on and take a V-tool and start defining the webs. First I got to do lower this on the other one so that they're both to the same step. All right, here we go on the shells. My approach on carving the shells is to carve down to the rib. There's a little rib in this prototype one. You got these ribs or steps between the highs and the lows, and you know, this one this was just a practice one when I did a few years ago. So it needs more work to get that all cleaned up, but that line's got to be pretty, you know, we need the line for the rise to be nice and smooth even on these curves, but then we need that little step to be parallel to that, or, you know, mostly it gets a little wider out at the ends, but we need that to be straight too. So it's kind of a challenge. So my approach is to first lower it down to that midway point, and I'm mostly worried about from the medallion to this 1/5. I took a rasp and took a lot of that waste out of there, and you know, I can do that pretty fast. But while it's laying flat like this, I'm kind of just worried about getting this down. It's about 1/8 of an inch or so, and just going to work my way around, and then I'll worry about getting these perfectly straight, or, you know, nice gentle curve, and then round them over. Then we'll just take a gouge and make our trough down the middle, keeping that little line parallel all the way down. So that's my approach. I'm no master carver. I just learned by doing. I think in carving, once you know the basics of how to go downhill on the grain, and like these are a good example, is when I'm going to round these over, I got to carve, the grain's going this way, you can see it, you got to carve this way, and then on this side you got to go from the top down. See, if I try to go this way, it's going to try to pull that grain up. I mean, it's all going to, so once you are aware of how you have to approach things with the grain, and then I think the other secret that you have to master for carving is keeping your tools sharp. You know, you got to have sharp tools, so knowing how to sharpen them and keep them sharp. Those are the things that once you know those basics, I think you just have to learn by doing after that. So, and that's what I'm doing. All right, I got them all down 1/8 of an inch. And so now I am working on getting these rounded over and as smooth as I can get it. Then once I get all of those done on both of them, then I'll go back and put in the recess. Alrighty, we got both of them. All the highs are done, so we are ready to do the lows here. And I smoothed those all out since I'm not a master carver. I used scrapers. I got a assortment of scrapers. I made this little one right here that I can get down in there. So I used that and these needle files to smooth out all the bumps and get it about as ready as I could. You can spend a lot of time on this trying to get it perfect, but you know, part of the handmade article is that it is not perfect. It is not machine made. So, but they're as close as I can get them. I did one low already, started a second one, and pretty good, but you gotta, you know, the thing is you gotta get that ledge pretty well evened all the way. It looks like right there. I don't know if that's just a pencil mark still, but that's the trick. And here's one I've marked. What I've done is I've got this little gauge, but I put a mechanical pencil in that hole and then run it down, then flip it over and run it down with the mechanical pencil in there. It takes 2 hands. So that's how I'm going to get the lines equal. And so now I need to do that on both shells. What's the matter? I didn't say it right? Yeah, my assistant always has to get her 2 cents in there. Anyway, onward. All right, we got all of the lobes, the highs, the lows, and the spaces in between. We got that all done on both of them. So now we have to concentrate on the medallion. So I've kind of sketched it out, and we need to lower this inside. So all of this needs to be down just about, 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit less, just enough to be able to show that there's a bead around here that makes that spiral. So we'll do that on both of them. All right, we got the recess done, and what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and refine the spiral, get that done. And this is slightly sloped down close. We've got our line. Let's see, we got our line from our blocking that's going to be there. So about 1/16 of an inch above that, and it's just kind of sloped down from there. So there's going to be petals inside of here. So I need to kind of smooth that out. But I'm going to go ahead and refine this all the way around, and then get that nice and smooth before I worry about that. All right, we got the spirals defined, and I found I don't have a gouge narrow enough to get down any deeper than that. I don't know. I can see about getting another one, or maybe that's all right with that. Anyway, so now we got to do the petals. So I've got those kind of laid out, and then there's a second set that's right at this point. So we're going to take the V-gouge, define those edges, and then make, shallow out each petal so that it looks like a flower. All right, we got the medallion done. So it's pretty much ready. I'll just do a little bit of cleanup and and then do the other one, and then they'll be ready to glue. But I'm gonna wait and do the concave one. This is the convex one. I'm gonna do the concave one in the middle of the door. I'll do that before I glue these on, just so it'll be easier to move around and clamp. Well, we're getting there.